For those of you that are not familiar, um, for a long time in the shul, we've been stopping after Shachris, before we open up the Aron HaKodesh and before we take out the Torah for Torah reading. And we've been studying one of the classic works of ethics, of character development, to take seriously the rabbi's directive that derech eretz kadma laTorah, that character comes before the study of Torah. Character, as we know from the opening of Pirkei Avos, is Torah, but in our minds sometimes we separate the actual text from the lessons of the text, and so the rabbis say derech eretz kadma laTorah. As a child, you have to learn character development. You have to learn how to be proper. And then you study it in the Torah, and the Torah study builds that character, and then it all comes together. So derech eretz kadma laTorah. For the last long time, the book we've been studying is called Ahavat Chesed. Literally translated, the love of Chesed. It comes from the pasuk in the Navi Micha, that it's not just actions of Chesed. The pasuk says, Asos Mishpat. You have to do the three key things that everything is founded on. The frame that through which, the lens that has three elements through which you see all of God's world and all of God's mitzvahs. So one is Asos Mishpat. Do that which is just. So that talks about individual specific actions. You have to do the right thing. And then there's Ahavas Chesed. Number two is a love of Chesed. That's an attitude. That's an outlook. It's not just doing acts of kindness. Of course you should do acts of kindness when you're presented with them. But a love of Chesed, that's an overarching attitude. That's what leads to what Aharon HaKohen taught. Ohev Shalom V'rodef. If you love peace, you pursue it. So Ahavas Chesed, if you love Chesed, you pursue it. And we've been discussing, the Chavetz Chaim's been taking us through many, many different elements of the mitzvah and the directive of Chesed. And one of the points he makes over and over again is that there's a difference between tzedakah and Chesed. Tzedakah is charity, even though there's a Chesed element to charity, without question. But tzedakah is charity. Greater than that is Chesed. Why? Because charity is money. Chesed is money and things and ideas. Charity is for the poor. Chesed is with everyone. Charity is only with the living. Chesed is with those who are living and those who have passed away. And so, in general, all things being equal, which they never are, so Chesed is even greater than charity. Chesed, you got to get personally involved. Charity, you write a check and you walk away. That's great. That's wonderful. But it's not the same. And so here we start the 8th chapter of the second part of the book. So the 8th chapter, he says, Bo Yuvuar Inyan Chesed Shetoli B'Dibur. We're going to explain the elements of Chesed that have to do with speech. And it's interesting that we're getting back to this now. You'll see along the way, in whatever number of sessions that each Friday that we do this chapter, which happens to be the last chapter of the book, we'll see that it has great bearing on the present situation. So Chesed that has to do with one's speech. And with that, therefore, is the idea that it's a mitzvah to do what you can to save someone or to remove someone from the pain that he or she might be in. So he starts. Amr Chazal, the rabbis told us, the chesed, that when it comes to acts of kindness, it's overarching. It's not just money, but it involves your body also. And when we consider acts of chesed, of kindness, that are done with one's body, you can split it into 3 categories, 3 degrees. The first is ma'aseh, actions. The second is dibur, speech. And the third is machshava, thought. And he says, Viad Kohen, until this point, Dibarnu baprakim she'avru, we spoke in the previous chapters, Kama pratim me'inyan chesed, a number of details that have to do with kindness, she'ikro talu b'ma'aseh, that primarily deal with action, u'machshava, and thought. Hainu, for example, la'azor la'chavreinu, to help our fellow, to help our friend, bishum davar shel tircha, with any matter that they have to put effort into, olisponein b'machshava, or to think, to come up with a plan, ulahaskil, and to be intelligent about it. That was the whole chapter we dealt with previously, Ashrei Maskil Eldal, the idea that the pasuk tells us you have to intelligently deal with the difficulty that a poor person faces, and all of the discussion we had surrounding that. Ulahaskil be'ezeh inyan ve'itza, to think about and to be aware of what issue and what advice nuchal takein matzavo can we come up with to fix or to ameliorate or to help the situation that a person finds himself in, to save him from completely being destroyed. That's everything. That's all included in what the pasuk says, and again, that we discussed last chapter, Ashrei Maskil Eldal. Fortunate is a person who can bring his intelligence to bear when dealing with a poor person. But now we're going to speak Me'inyan Chesed, about the subject of Chesed, that shetalui b'dibur. It has to do with speech. Because a person, in everything that he says, in everything that he speaks, can bring to it the characteristic of Chesed. And again, like we do when we're in person on Shabbos, we often stop in the middle of sentences and come back to it. But I said that this will have great bearing on the situation in which we find ourselves now, because the reality is that any one of us, since we have the great gift of communication technology, from as simple as a telephone to a window, and as far as video conferencing and whatever other element, we have the opportunity to do chesed one with another. Sometimes it's as simple as picking up the phone and calling someone, saying, how are you? But not the shallow social pulp, how are you, where we really don't want a response. But to truly, how are you? Is this something I can do for you? Perhaps I can just spend a couple of moments on the phone with you. And those are the types of things that the Chavetz Chaim is going to be talking about, and especially in our situation of unfortunately this forced social distancing, we can still do chesed. Absolutely, positively, 100%, every one of us can still do chesed by sometimes just picking up the phone and talking to someone. So let's just go a little bit further, and again, we stop wherever we stop often and come back to it. Aleph, number one, Binyani Torah, when it has to do with studying and teaching Torah. Now, those who have had more time in yeshiva will have a different appreciation for this than others, but everyone can understand this idea. Torah, where you are there to teach. You see the opportunity to teach someone else, hu b'chal chesed. That's part of chesed. But if you study yourself and you're not interested in anybody else, it's hard to study with people and it's hard to teach people. It's easier just to study by yourself. Eino b'chlal chesed. That's Torah, but it's not part of chesed. The Chavetz Chaim himself, if you want, Rabbi Wein has a 3-part series on the life of the Chavetz Chaim. You can go to RabbiWein.com and download it. But he makes the point that Chofetz Chaim himself, he wrote books for those who are not in the yeshiva that nobody else wanted to study with. He studied with people nobody else wanted to study with. The idea that you're there for someone else, that the two of you study together, you don't even have to teach, that you give someone else an opportunity to study with you. That's chesed. As it says in the Gemara in Sukkah, page 49, what does it mean? We say it in the Eshes Chayil, Pia Pascha b'chachma, she opened her mouth with wisdom, v'toras chesed al shona. The Torah of kindness was on her tongue. So the Gemara asks, what is Torah that is chesed, Torah that isn't chesed? Torah is the Torah, it's all chesed. As a matter of fact, one could point out, as the Gemara does, Torah starts with chesed, not only the chesed of life itself and of building a world and of giving life to the human beings upon it, but the Talmud says that when it says Vayiven Asatzela, that God built the flank of Adam into Chava, so it says that language means that God did Chava's hair, braided her hair, and brought her to Adam, that the bride should look beautiful for the groom. And, God was the first hair and makeup person. But that message is amazing, that God took the time. And the end of the Torah, of course, where God went and buried Moshe Rabbeinu. So it starts with chesed, it ends with chesed. So what does that mean, Torah's chesed? So the Gemara says, Torah that you internalize to teach others, to elevate others, to model so that others learn from it. That's Torah chesed. Torah she'eino l'lamed, but if it's not to teach because you're smarter than everybody else and you don't want to deal with anybody else and whatever it is, so zui Torah she'eino shel chesed. That's Torah that's not chesed. So that's number one. In this idea of Torah with respect to chesed, with respect to speech, issue number one is that we have to focus on the Torah and teaching of Torah when we think about that. We'll see. There will be other points that it will be making. We'll, Mirza Hashem, continue it as we go along, hopefully very soon in person, but in the meantime, in this forum. Shabbat Shalom.